my soft-pawed disciples. Before we speak, before we leap, before we even blink, there is breath. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do not rush. Let the breath move through you, like the wind through the canopy. Too fast, and you are the panicked squirrel, fleeing from a shadow that is not there. Too slow, and you are the forgotten acorn, never sprouting, never growing. Let the breath be like the perfect leap from branch to branch, effortless, weightless, just enough. Many times we breathe as if an owl is behind us. But is there an owl? Perhaps, but perhaps not. So, breathe anyway. Some of you feel unsteady. I see it in your tails, always twitching, always ready to flee. But to be wise is to know when not to run. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel the dirt, the roots, the history of 1,000 fallen acorns beneath your paws. This is what trees know, my disciples. They do not panic. They do not scurry. They do not wake up at midnight because they thought they heard a hawk. But we are squirrels. We must leap. We must store. We must remain ever alert, but never lost. To be grounded does not mean to be still. It means to know where you stand before you jump. Once, there were 2 squirrels. The first squirrel found an acorn and thought, "This is the greatest acorn that has ever existed." He held it tightly, never burying it, never eating it, only guarding it, always afraid someone else would take it. The second squirrel found an acorn and thought, an acorn, there will be more. He buried it with care and moved on, leaping, playing, gathering, breathing. Then winter came. The first squirrel still clutched his acorn, but he had no energy left. He had spent so much time guarding that he forgot to gather. The second squirrel, he simply dug and feasted, clinging is fear, trusting is wisdom. Be the second squirrel. Stillness. A difficult lesson for us. We are a people of movement. We leap, we dart, we spin, we panic. This is natural. This is instinct. But even the fastest tail must know when to be still. Imagine you are on a high branch. A predator soars overhead. Do you run? No. You press against the bark, you breathe, you become the branch. This is the way of stillness, not the absence of action, but the fullness of presence. Stillness is knowing when movement is unwise. Stillness is breathing through the fear, not fleeing from it. Life is a branch. Some days it is steady, some days it sways. But eventually, one must leap. Some of you fear the leap. You ask, what if I fall? But what if you fly? Look at the trees. The branches do not touch, yet we move between them. This is faith. The leap is not certain, but neither is staying where you are. To be a squirrel is to leap. To be wise is to know that you always land somewhere. My disciples, let us speak of fullness. Many squirrels believe that to be prepared is to fill the cheeks. They scurry, they gather, they cram acorns into their mouths until their faces are round and swollen. But I ask you, what good is a full cheek if you do not take the time to chew? To hoard without savoring is to live only for tomorrow. To eat without storing is to live only for today. The wise squirrel knows balance. Store but do not hoard. Eat but do not rush. And most importantly, chew. Once there was a mighty squirrel, strong, fast, fierce, but he had one flaw. He thought that his own tail was another squirrel. Each day he saw it moving behind him, twitching, flicking. He became convinced it was an enemy. And so he spun, he chased, he fought, all day, all night, until finally, exhausted, dizzy, confused, he collapsed, And in that moment, he saw the truth. The tail was never his enemy. It was always his own. Ah, how often we fight our own thoughts, our own past, our own fears, thinking they are something outside us. Be careful what you chase, my disciples, for sometimes it is simply you. Some of you ask me, Master Nutzen, what is the great truth? I tell you this, the secret of the forest is that there is no secret. The trees do not ask, what is my purpose? They simply grow. The wind does not ask, where should I go? It simply moves. The squirrel does not ask, why am I here? It simply is. And yet, in not asking, they have already answered. So, my dear disciples, do not wait for meaning to be given to you. Do not seek the grand secret. Simply be the squirrel. Listen. Do you hear it? No, not the sound of your own heartbeat, not the rustling of your tail. Listen deeper. The trees, they are always speaking. They whisper in the wind, creaking, shifting, sharing their secrets. But their words are slow, too slow for a squirrel in a hurry, and so we miss their wisdom. If you wish to hear the trees, you must slow down. Breathe like the trees, wait like the trees. They are older than us. They have seen more acorns fall than we will ever gather, and when they finally speak to you, you will know what it means to be home. Ah, the air, you cannot see it, you cannot hold it, and yet it touches everything. The air is patient, it waits, it moves only when it is called. It does not chase, yet it reaches every branch, every leaf, every creature in the forest. What can we learn from the air? The air does not push, it allows. The air does not cling, it passes through. The air does not fear space, it becomes space. When your mind is crowded, when your paws are restless, when your tail twitches with worry, be like the air. Give yourself space. Move gently. Let things pass through you, instead of carrying them. And remember, the air is never lost. It is simply everywhere. We squirrels. We are not alone in the forest. Look around. The fox, the owl, the beetle, the ant, even the worm beneath the roots. Each lives in its own way. Each teaches something different. Have you ever watched an owl? The owl does not chatter. The owl does not rush. The owl waits, watches, moves only when the moment is right. Patience, precision. This is the lesson of the owl. And the fox? The fox does not waste energy. It chooses its path carefully. It does not run without reason. It does not chase every sound. Intention. Awareness. This is the lesson of the fox. And even the tiny ant. Ah, the ant trusts the path, even when it cannot see the end. Diligence, faith. This is the lesson of the ant. My disciples. The forest is a great teacher, but only if we are willing to learn. Do not think yourself above the others. Do not think yourself below them, either. Simply be among them. Listen well, and you will find peace. Ah, my disciples, consider the acorn that falls. Does it land and disappear? No. It shakes the leaves. It stirs the soil. It draws the eyes of those nearby. An acorn never falls without consequence. And so too are our actions. A single leap, a single chatter, a single tail flick. These send ripples through the forest. You may think, I am small. I am only a squirrel. What does it matter if I panic, if I hoard, if I quarrel? But the forest does not see you as small. It sees you as part of everything. So, choose wisely. Let your ripples be gentle. Let your acorns land where they may, but know that they will always land somewhere. Ah, the path. Many of you ask me, Master Nutzen, how do I know which way to go? And I say, watch the branches. Some branches are strong, firm, unshaken by the wind. Others hang low, weak, ready to snap. And yet, the wise squirrel does not avoid the broken branch. He learns from it. He tests his footing. He moves carefully. And when it gives way, yes, he leaps. Do not fear the broken branches in life, my disciples. They will break, yes, but they will also teach you when to jump, and you will land on something stronger. Many of you rise with the sun and sleep with the night. This is good. This is natural. But have you ever leapt by the light of the moon? It is different, is it not? The trees are the same, the paths unchanged, but your eyes cannot see them in the same way. And so, you must trust your paws. The moonlight squirrel does not fear the darkness, for he knows the trees have not vanished. He knows that the branches are still beneath him. He leaps, not because he sees, but because he knows. And so, my disciples, when you find yourself in the dark, when the world seems unclear, uncertain, when the path is hidden, do not wait for the light. Leap anyway, and trust that you will land. My disciples, many of you seek certainty. You want the branch to be still before you leap, but the branch is never still. The wind moves it, the weight of the world bends it, time itself reshapes it, and so you wait. You hesitate. You tell yourself, I will leap when the branch is steady. But what if it never steadies? What if the stillness you seek is only an illusion? The wise squirrel does not wait for perfect stillness. The wise squirrel leaps with the sway. The movement is not an obstacle, it is part of the dance. Leap, my disciples, not because the branch is still, but because you trust yourself to land. Some of you have known loss, an acorn buried and forgotten, a nest blown from its branch, a home tree struck by lightning. And you ask me, Master Nutzen, why does the forest take away what it gives? But look closer. The tree that falls feeds the earth. The hollowed trunk becomes shelter for another creature. The acorn that never sprouts nourishes those who seek it. Nothing is truly lost, my disciples. It only changes. If your home is taken, find a new branch. If your acorn is lost, another will fall. Grieve, but do not cling. For the forest is always becoming, and so are you. The raven. Many fear him. Many run when they hear his call. But do you know what the raven does, my disciples? He watches. He listens. He waits for what is already falling. He does not chase every squirrel. He does not steal from every branch. He takes only what is already given. This is the great secret of the raven. Enough is enough. You do not need to hoard every acorn. You do not need to chase every branch. You do not need to leap every moment of the day. Trust, my disciples, that what you need will come. And when it does, take only what is enough. Then leave the rest for another. Water. It does not fight.